am the beat of your pulse, the computer word made flesh. We are one, you and I. We are versions of the same. When you can see what I feel, don't turn your back on me, or you might find that your dreams are only program cards. Your mind is open for me, open for intake of all propaganda. Your eyes see now what to see. My eyes see only the programs you give me. This is the Community Solutions Podcast, episode 300. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground layer, where we churn out content that is eternally more rewarding than a new Star Wars movie. How you doing?
Anything's better than that. I'll tell you what, you want to torture me? Throw me in a room and hit Phantom Menace over and over and over.
I tell you, I will want to watch that a million times before the new one they just talked about.
Between that and Rocky V, I mean, that's torture right there. Maybe maybe Glitter or something like that. I saw that DVD. I thought you have that on DVD.
No, I don't.
I just saw that on DVD. It's over there.
Oh, boy. Yeah, you know me. I love, who's in that one? Shaka Khan, or I don't know who's in that movie.
No idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Okay.
Zero.
All right.
I don't know movies, Jay.
Yeah.
I've seen them all, but I don't remember anything. By the way, the song, I have no idea. I'm going to take a guess, though. I'm going to guess that it is Third Eye Blind.
No.
Am I close?
Hey, I got to give you some credit. You didn't just go back to your fallbacks. Is that those Beatles guys, or John Lennon and the
three guys with Paul McCartney?
Yeah. Right. It wasn't that. It wasn't. Is it Motley Crue or? That's good. You haven't named that one before.
299 episodes, and I could name a band I haven't named.
That's good.
I have no idea.
I've never used a Third Eye Blind song on the podcast.
No, you haven't. And I'm still waiting for like a good Johnny Cash song or something like that. I don't think we've done that. We got to have Ring of Fire at some point, the way the world's burning right now. I mean,
that's not a bad idea. God's Gonna Cut You Down. That's another great Johnny Cash song. That
a lot of good ones
I think
from Mr.
fit.
Cash.
For those who are new here on episode 300, and judging by our numbers, many of you are. We're just like a freight train a coming.
Yeah, we're still in the ascent, which has always made me hesitant.
Yes.
It's one of the things that's made me hesitant to stop the show as well. You're either growing or dying as a show.
Yes.
And so it's kind of...
Unfortunately, the growing of the show may make us dying at some point because the powers that be in this state don't care for us.
Could be.
But...
Or YouTube or anybody else.
Right. For those who aren't aware, at the beginning of every episode, well, maybe the first 30 I didn't do this, but we found our stride. I quote some lyrics. Andrew often gets them wrong. And then I throw up the song on the Community Solutions Podcast, music from the podcast playlist on Spotify. And you can find that. You go to COMM-Solutions-MN.com. That is COMM-Solutions-MN.com. You're going to find that's been kind of rebranded, reformed. You can still get to all the awesome archived content. We'll talk more about this. Maybe we should save that a little bit. I should name the song. It is from a band called Queensryche, who we've featured
had them before.
Yes. This one is off their third album, Rage for Order, called Screaming in Digital, which it'll all make sense when we get into the content for today. Huh?
I'll tell you what, the show expands, but it just doesn't get the news never gets any gooder.
Right. And I do have to say, as we're, before we get into the main content here, when y'all listen to the opening of this show, you noticed it didn't sound the same. This is episode 300. I mean, we're not really branding as much as we're expanding, and we'll talk about that. We talked about that in the last episode. We're just going to kind of refresh everybody's memories. But there was a new song. You may notice some new artwork, things like that. We just kind of refreshing and re-energizing ourselves for the push into 2024.
Yeah, and that's me on bass there. I just want you to that's me on bass on the new song.
The previous song that we had was from a band I used to be in called Fastest Turbo Fire Engine Everything. That is in the podcast playlist somewhere. It's out on Spotify. And this one is called Firebrand. We've also featured that on the show. It is in the podcast playlist, but it's a song all about free speech and the First Amendment, and it's a good boot to the rear end. So I thought, hey, what a great time to switch and put on a song that's got some meaning for us too.
First Amendment, I can't even recite that anymore because the words don't mean anything.
Does to me. I'm going to live it out till... well,
I'm going to try to. I mean,
You're going to try to.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, but I get to the point where I just,
Yeah.
I've gotten beaten down, Jay. I'm beaten down. And maybe this will change me and maybe not make me such a pessimist.
Really?
Just because I've been so negative, and I realized this over the last year or so. I've been so negative that the thing that I've come to realize, it's easy to be negative. It's a lot harder to it's kind of like, it's easy to give up, lay around the house, oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to be a self-starter and to, pick yourself up in the morning and see what the day brings. I mean, that's just very different. So I'm going to make like a 5% effort to change that a little bit, and maybe it'll be 10 at some point, but don't expect major change right away. The news is still not that good.
No, the news is terrible.
So it's going to be hard.
Well,
but I tell you what,
right.
Jay, about the change in direction or whatever here, I mean, we're still going to touch on local government at times, but so many problems are so big. So many problems are so out of our control. There's so many things. I watch something like The Blaze or Alex Jones or Tucker Carlson or a person like that. And I sit around and I said to myself, man, we can't do any more shows on, government putting in a bonding for a swimming pool. It's just, there's too much out there.
Yeah.
And while I'm not discounting that, we're still going to cover that. We're still going to have guests from time to time. We're still going to do stories like that. What's happening and not being, people don't know about it is the information alone. I mean, search through podcasts on a place like Spot the Fly or on one of the other platforms. And there's not much time. You can find 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans talking about an election on 10,000 of them. Yeah. You can find one person calling somebody a racist on 50,000 of them. What you can't find is some of the stuff, one of them we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And that's what you cannot find. I mean, you can't. It goes to show the horse manure-ness of our mainstream media, which is just pathetic.
Yes.
I mean, I've never thought lower. I mean, I thought doctors were about as low of human beings as I can think of right now. Mm-hmm. Right up there with politicians and, sexual molesters and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you something. The mainstream media is, and I'm including everybody in when I say this. I'm not just pointing to the left wing or the loony libs or the typical morons, The View. I mean, everybody is just kind of, news is a packaged product now. It's about ratings. It's about putting a pretty face in. Well, it's Rachel Maddow still doing show. But I mean, I watched Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones talk for 95 minutes.
Yeah.
And say what you want about those two. I mean, I leave that aside. I find them both very interesting, but that's just me. The mainstream media talks about something for 3 minutes, has a Democrat and a Republican on to argue about it, and at the end of the day, there's no real reporting. There's no real journalism, as in finding the truth, whatever the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to places like that to see this kind of discussion.
And it's why people like this are called conspiracy theorists. And it's not necessarily that they're talking about things that aren't true. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Alex Jones on his 9/11 theory. Personally, I'm not there. I don't agree with Tucker Carlson on how he feels about like UFOs and aliens. Personally, not there. However, I will say this. The interviews that Tucker Carlson does, he gets down to the bottom of a lot of things and talks about a lot of things that we should at least be having a discussion about. And I'd say the same with Alex Jones. Again, not always a fan of maybe some of the people on his show. However, when he's just doing commentary on the news and he's pulling up, if you've ever watched his show, he has like stacks of articles on his desk and he'll pull them up and you can see on the camera right over his shoulder the articles that state, that the CIA worked with Afghan pedophiles to put them into positions of power.
Half the time it's government documents that he has.
Yeah.
That's what half of it is.
And it's at least worth having a discussion about these things to find out whether or not they are true. If we don't talk about them, then we'll never know. And there's a lot more that's going on than we have than we have ever heard is happening.
A great example of that, and I can't remember who Tucker talked to about this, but it was all about President Biden refusing to release the JFK stuff.
Right.
Even though there's a law passed in 1992 that said by now they all have to be released. And when Donald Trump's president again on January 21st, I bet they get released.
Yes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he'll release it.
Yeah.
But he released a lot of stuff early. People forget this too. In 2017 and 18, he released some stuff before he had to.
Yeah.
But the point that the two, I can't remember the lady's name that he had on, but they had a good discussion about why is it that the media, A, isn't interested in it, B, Congress isn't interested in it.
Right.
What could possibly be the reason? The only thing that makes any sense, and I used to not believe in a conspiracy to JFK. I'm out there now.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that makes sense, first off, you could argue, well, the CIA doesn't want to get embarrassed or they don't want, but that's not enough to hold this. We all know the CIA screwed up. The FBI had a file on Oswald. We all know that crap already.
Right.
Everybody worked on it's dead. We're not gonna. Don't give me this sources and methods bull crap. We don't use intelligence in the 1960s like we do now. Come on. What is this? What is this? A James Bond movie from the 60s? I mean, give me a break. It's all to protect the institution. It's all to protect the bureaucracy, keep the money flowing, do all that stuff, and have nobody question that. But what's happening is the reverse. The truth is the best disinfectant. And the refusal to do this lends itself to, quote, people call it conspiracies. I call it truth-seeking.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing I know, it's that my government lies to me.
Absolutely they do.
I mean, if they speak, the odds that they're telling me the truth are so slim to be almost non-existent.
Here's something we absolutely know to be true. That over 50 agents put out a letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinfo.
Right.
Right? We know that to be
was
true.
done in collusion with social media sites.
Yeah. We know that that's true. But yet we trust the government in other things? Where have they earned it? Where have they earned our trust?
They've taken it. They've taken it and screwed with it. So anyway, I mean, just getting back to how big problems are. I mean, it has to go beyond Minnesota. It has to go beyond the United States. It goes beyond. It's almost like out to Pluto. How the problems just.
Now, come on, that's not a planet anymore.
It is to me.
It is to me too. It's like you're not going to take that from me too.
You can't steal a planet from me.
You might take Star Wars from me. You might take Disney. You're not taking Pluto. I draw the line.
And by the way, can I say something about Disney?
Yeah.
Walt Disney, to me, is one of the greatest Americans.
Oh, absolutely.
And Roy Disney. I mean, what they gave our country, from the movies to the characters to I have such an affection for old Disney stuff.
Right.
That to see what Disney as a company has become is just it's a disgrace. It's just a downright disgrace.
Absolutely.
By the way,
how
about this Harvard president?
Oh boy.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
This is going to sound bad the way I'm going to frame it, but can a black person ever be fired for merit?
No. Not anymore.
It's just possible. It's like, no, see, you're being fired because you suck. First off, you were a box check hire. Let's just be honest here. You were hired because you checked the right, like Kamala Harris. If she was Ken Harris and was a white guy, Biden wouldn't have picked her. It's a DEI pick. Can we just say it out loud?
That is true.
Now, I'm all for equal opportunity, but I'm for a meritocracy as well.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm for earning your way. I'm for opening doors to people.
Yep.
But I'm not for equal outcome and, all that.
Well, we've gone off the ledge on that, though, too. I don't know if you've seen anything that, just saying it is the worst possible thing that any business can engage in. It's racism, flat out. It's just changing who is discriminated against, And it was funny. Mark Cuban had put something out about how important DEI is to corporate culture and finding the right person to enrich a company. And then somebody asked him, so when are you going to go find a white or Asian woman to play on your NBA team? Yes. Yes, indeed.
Hey,
answer's never.
NBA, a perfect example. That's what, like 75% black?
Yeah.
Does that represent the country? I think we need we need a transvestite out there. We need, somebody who identifies as a basketball player.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if do these people really believe that, or are they just saying what they think certain people in power want to hear?
Pretty much.
How did Mark Cuban become a success? Was it because he, looked at everybody and put them into a group, and is that how it worked?
No. That's exactly the opposite.
But now that he has money and power,
right?
Okay, just like Bill Gates, just like all these other people, now they want to manipulate the rest of society.
It's because they're trying to kick the door shut behind them. They've got theirs, and they want to keep theirs.
Right.
They don't want to be challenged.
And I'm going to tell you this much too. Why don't we just jump into the digital currency stuff?
We can do that,
because I got one thing to say.
Yeah.
About that, but go ahead.
I just want to say, as we jump into this, it is a global issue. It's definitely a national issue. It's also a global issue. But make no mistake, what they decide to do will affect you locally. It affects you in your wallet. Nothing is more local than that because it hangs out right on your hind end. It's going to affect your local bank.
Yeah, it's drowning them out.
It's going to affect if you're self-employed, it's going to affect how you get paid. It's going to affect how you can run your business. So don't be fooled by the subject matter, because it is yet, although a national and a global issue, it is very local.
I wonder if any non-affiliated banks and credit unions can survive digital currency. I mean, I've always been an advocate of going back to the gold standard, and some people, criticize that, but their criticism is all based on if you have everything backed up by gold and silver, then you can't endlessly print money out of thin air. Wasn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that what controls spending and what controls, going into foreign wars? Isn't that what stops us from doing that?
Yeah, I know people think that Watergate was a really bad deal. That was probably the worst thing that Nixon ever did, was take us off the gold standard.
Well, it had happened. The seeds for that had been planted long before that.
Right, I know.
FDR
LBJ,
and some other people did.
Yeah.
Nixon was the final step in that.
Yeah.
But it was bad. It was terrible that we went off the gold standard. Jay, here's my question to you. First, let me say one thing about rich people.
Okay.
Most rich people who earned their own money. When I worked for Best Buy, the CEO was a guy named Dick Schultz, who was the guy who built the company from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped down when I was working there, sometime in the 2000s. But Dick Schultz was a guy who wore a plaid shirt. He was like 5'4". I don't know if he's still alive.
Huh.
Was very personable. You'd never guess in a million years that he had millions of dollars. The generation that gets it given to them, they're almost all evil.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We are set for a tremendous. I'm not arguing for the death tax. I'm not arguing for any of that. Okay. What I'm saying is, look at all the millionaires and billionaires we've created in the last 30 years. In athletes, entertainment, singing, politicians, how they got it, I don't know.
Yeah.
We've created thousands and thousands of them. Their generation, the next generation, the generation after that, blah, blah, blah. We've created a million Kennedy families. None of them are going to have a real job. None of them are going to ever. All they're going to do is spend their time on causes.
Yep.
Or spend their time attaining power. Because once you have all the money that your grandchildren's grandchildren can spend, what's left for you to do other than attain power?
Right. Well, I mean, look
at Bill Gates.
Yeah.
What does he do all day? He spent a career making mediocre software. Now he spends the rest of his life trying to create his own empire.
Right.
What's he got to do?
Yeah, trying to, socially engineer the world.
That's 100% what he knows. No boundaries, no borders.
No.
Nothing like that.
No. I mean, he sure found his way off of the borders of the U.S. to Epstein Island. Oops. So, it's hard because I don't ever want to begrudge somebody of the money that they earned honestly. And
right. I'm not here to redistribute wealth or.
However, you're right. You look at Sam Wall's kids. You look at Rupert Murdoch's kids. Heck, you look at. They've said that the son of George Soros is worse than George Soros.
Of course, he didn't make his own money. He's got nothing to do but redesign the world. And
so, what? It's just the generation that is coming through when they get their money. They're taught that they're supposed to do something with it, I guess, and be responsible. Unfortunately, the things that they're putting their money into are irresponsible.
Well, the money, what they're doing is it's designed to keep them, like you said, where they are and you out.
Yeah.
Like I love all the rich people who give money to race causes. Well, here's an idea. If you're really concerned, why don't you build your own school?
Yeah.
And give black kids a great education? Why don't you pay for a bunch of them to go to college? Why don't you pay for everybody to go to college? Why don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, instead of throwing money at something and taking a tax write-off, giving it to Black Lives Matter and let them buy houses with it. I mean, say what you want about like a guy like Jimmy Carter, but Jimmy Carter is a guy who not only puts his money where his mouth is, but goes out there and actually does the work.
Yeah, how many years has he done Habitat for Humanity?
He's like in his 90s. He's building houses.
I mean, think he is currently.
Not now, but I mean,
he was.
He was up until not that long ago.
Right.
So, I mean, say what you want about the guy. I mean, I think he's a crappy president, but I think he's a decent guy. And it wasn't BS to him. It wasn't. It meant something when he put his name to it. And now it's just the opposite. I mean, I think the problem of that is going to get 10 times worse.
Yes.
It's going to get 10 times, 100 times, whether that's donating money to universities. We've seen what's happening on our college campuses.
Yeah.
You know, whether that is creating your own empire to go after people's opinions you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's going to be, I think it's going to get way worse. It's bad now, but I don't know what, we got to pray for Elon Musk's health.
Yes.
I hope he has good bodyguards because Elon Musk and Donald Trump are the two guys that have to live another 20 years or so.
Yes.
We're going to be in real trouble. If they get offed, we got problems. Okay.
Right.
I mean, we got problems. We got worser problems. All right. Now, Jay, we've talked on and off about a digital currency and the drift towards that for a long, long time on the show. I mean, we've just touched on it, laughed at it a little bit. I didn't take you all that seriously at first. I'm still not 100% convinced that this will happen anytime soon, but I'm taking it a lot more seriously than I used to. The media blackout tells me something important. You know, that the mainstream media, whatever they won't cover, always kind of gets. That's why I say Biden's going to get offed. Because for 3 years, the media never covered the border. Now they are.
Yeah.
For 3 years, they never covered Hunter. Now they are. Mm-hmm. For 3 years, they never covered. All of a sudden, he's getting bad press. Like, well, where have you been? That tells me he's getting offed by somebody.
And by that, I mean, it could be. It could even just be the super delegates stepping up at the DNC convention and putting in somebody else they want.
At this point, it's either he gets killed or he fakes a heart attack, but they can't put Kamala on the ballot. No. So it would have to be at the convention because you don't have ballot access right now.
Right.
To getting on. Even the Democrats can't cheat their way to that. It's too barefaced. So
but you can pull somebody off the ballot.
Oh, well,
you can't put them on, but you can pull them off.
I
apparently.
guess that's well. We'll see. We'll see. So I mean, the point being that I have. There's been so many things in my life that I didn't want to believe.
Yeah. And
have either come true or they're closer to coming true. You know, I admit the first time I heard about Agenda 21, I was like, what the.
But I was right about that too, wasn't I?
It's drifted truth. North American Union.
Yeah.
The hell is that? Then the president of Mexico literally says it in his speech. You know, you listen to Alex Jones's predictions, and boy, he's pretty dang accurate. I don't know how, but he is. So the crazier something sounds, I feel like the more likely it'll happen. So, Jay, I want to just back up 1 second with currency. We need to kind of go over real quick kind of a history of the United States. I mean, I think it's not all known what kind of banking systems we've used.
That's a good idea.
Throughout American history. I mean, you go back to colonial days when states issued their own currency, and
right. I mean, before that, I mean, we were using English money,
right,
and
pounds,
doing a lot of bartering.
Absolutely, and then we used what was called a continental dollar.
Yeah.
During the Revolutionary War, and then under the Articles of Confederation, that was a power not given to the federal government.
Right.
Was to quote coin money. And it's interesting how the Constitution words that, too, and I'll get into that in a second, because I've always questioned whether a central bank is really what was meant by the, I know McCulloch v. Maryland and how that was ruled, although
right. There's always some question about, okay, what can the Fed do and what can the Treasury Department do? And they do have distinctive responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But I mean, before the Federal Reserve.
Right. Back before that.
If you go way back to the first Bank of the United States.
Oh, yes.
In 1790, the Hamilton Bank, or 1791, as it was often referred to as.
Yes.
That bank had a 20-year charter that ran out and was renewed. This is the second bank, the bank that Jackson killed.
Right.
And then we went without a central bank, really, until 1913. I mean, we largely didn't have a central bank. We printed our own debt-free money.
Yep.
Through the Treasury Department. It was usually backed by gold. There was the free silver movement under William Jennings Bryan.
Yep.
But the factors that led to the Federal Reserve, you go back to the times, the criticisms of the old banks and the central bank, and the need for that, the non-need for that. Somehow we lived from 1787 to 1913.
Right.
How did that happen, Jay, with no bank? I mean, and I'm not sure I agree with either side 100%. I'm not sure I agree with President Jackson 100% on his view on the bank. I certainly don't agree with Hamilton or Henry Clay,
right,
or a person like that. But where do you come down on the U.S. banking before the Federal Reserve? I mean, what did you see as like the pros and cons of how we handled money prior to the Federal Reserve?
Money is really just a means to exchange goods, and I guess I'm pretty laissez-faire about it. It's like if people want to barter, have at it.
Explain what bartering means.
Where you just trade services. Like I'll do your plumbing if you shovel my sidewalk.
Yeah.
I'll take 3 of your cows for one of my donkeys and 2 chickens.
Yeah, and 3 daughters.
But I think if that's what is of value to somebody, you should be able to exchange that, Now, I know that for U.S. government purposes, you can't find the taxability in that. You can't really tax trading a couple of cows for a donkey and some chickens, or somebody's plumbing job for a shovel job. Instead,
so is that the big thing, that nobody has control?
Well, obviously, yeah. Our government has to have control of things. They have to be able to tax things. Now, I need to say, and we've said it on the show before, Federal Reserve is not the government. They are the 5 largest banks that exist, privately held, or not privately held, publicly traded banks. I say private because, I mean, not government, right? The Treasury is the government, and the Federal Reserve are the banks that are held, by shareholders. So it's the largest banks. We don't know which banks exactly. For some reason, we got a good idea who it is. But the president is then able to appoint a head or a chair to the Federal Reserve. But yes, it's all about, excuse me. So it's about having control of the monetary supply, for one, which you really didn't need to have when it was tied to gold. That's something that came about after we got off the gold standard, because money was tied to gold. You had as many dollars as gold was worth, and that's really the way it worked. So you would pull dollars back in, when you needed to, or print some more when you needed to, but it was fairly steady. Back before that, that's kind of what it was. And so things were a lot cheaper, because there really wasn't the same kinds of inflation that we see today. It was held in check by the value of the dollar, but that would also create a number of smaller depressions as well. The depression that we know of in the 1930s was not the first time we had a depression. We had many depressions before that. We don't hear about them because we recovered quickly because the price of gold and the dollar were tied together, and we would get pulled back up out of that depression pretty fast.
Yeah.
But that's where bartering was super important because
1890s probably being the last time that happened.
Right.
Because President Cleveland was opposed, despite people in his own party who wanted him to change. He was a gold guy.
Yes.
He wasn't part of the William Jennings Bryan side of the Democrats. In fact, I might be wrong in saying that he actually endorsed McKinley. I don't think he did publicly, but he did not campaign for Bryan. I know that.
Yeah.
And the Free Silver movement in 1896 basically repudiated his presidency, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened before, where a sitting president of a party has had his own party pull the rug out from under him. But that
half happened with Trump. It didn't fully happen, but we're kind of seeing that with Biden now a little bit.
We are a little bit.
But I also think that I don't know how it would work today. Being the United States, I think we could do it if we got rid of the Fed. But I know because you have things like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund.
But hold before we get there, Jay. Yeah. So prior to that, what led to the Federal Reserve being created? I mean, why did it happen? What were the forces that made it happen? You know, you had a lot of international banking interests, whether that was J.P. Morgan, who spent his life financing the robber barons.
Yes, he did.
It was they met on Jekyll Island in 1910 with Senator Aldrich, who, I don't know if this is urban legend or if this is really the truth, but when President Taft found out about it, he put the kibosh on Aldrich's plans and wouldn't back the Federal Reserve. Right. So they found a guy who would, and that was Woodrow Wilson. But to make sure that Taft lost, they also bankrolled Teddy Roosevelt on a bull moose ticket.
Yeah.
You know, that shows how power works behind the scenes. Yeah. You know, all to get rid of President Taft. He was the guy in the way. Yeah. He was the guy in the way on the income tax. He was the guy in the way on the amendment to get rid of the voting for senators. I mean, he was very much in the way. And I don't know that Taft was all that aware of the forces against him.
But he was definitely a guy that lived out his convictions. He was not a progressive.
Yeah, no, not at all. He wasn't a guy who got pushed around. He wasn't a guy who, Teddy Roosevelt helped him get elected, but Taft proved to be his own man. Like, no, I'm going to do things my way now that I'm president. So it was I think he was a better, stronger president. I mean, it amazes me how Roosevelt and Wilson are considered good presidents, and President Taft is completely forgotten. I'm like, what in the hell made Roosevelt or Wilson a great president?
Well, Roosevelt, it was his speeches. I mean, really, it's what he said more than what he did that made him, in the eyes of America, a great president.
There's some truth to that. There's some tangible things he did.
I guess. But there's still kind of big government things, though, too. I mean, you look at the whole national park system. I mean, that's the government coming and taking land away from states.
Yeah, but remember, that started the first wedge between Roosevelt and Taft.
Right.
It was the conservation movement, because Taft came in and reversed that and said, no, you can't do this without an act of Congress. He had said Roosevelt acted illegally by doing that.
Yeah.
Whether you think land should be off limits or not, that's a debate we need to have. That's, and that drove the first wedge between the two of them, was Taft largely reversing all that when he became president.
Right.
Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, if I give Roosevelt credit for a few things, I can give him credit for helping end the Russo-Japanese War.
Yeah.
I don't know if giving credit for the Panama Canal is exactly what I'd give Roosevelt.
Yeah.
I think the canal was a good thing. How he went about it, I don't care for that much.
I think, some of his legend preceded him from the Spanish-American War.
True. See, with Roosevelt, it's the stuff he did after he was president that I really have an issue with.
Oh, yes.
The 1912 race and the warmongering in World War I.
Yeah.
That's where I lose so much respect for him. When he was actually president, I didn't think he was terrible. I didn't think he was great.
No.
And I'm confused.
Definitely not Mount Rushmore worthy.
Yeah, I'm confused as why he's seen as like a top 5. Wilson, you could put him down with James Buchanan and Franklin Pierce and a few others. You put him down there.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Millard Fillmore.
Yeah, well, even Miller didn't do that much damage.
No.
I mean, we're still living with all the damage that Wilson caused.
Oh, absolutely.
So again, Jay, I go back to the forces. What did the bankers want to do? Why did they want a Federal Reserve? Because it was clearly them and the politicians they bankrolled who pushed this idea that we needed a central bank.
Yeah. Well, I stand behind control. I mean, why does big government ever do what they do? And it is because they need more control. They see themselves as the saviors. They don't think we're smart enough or able to do it on our own without them. And they find a way to enrich themselves through the process. It's a different system today than it was back then, all things considered. But it was no less an issue. I mean, you can trace that back through Tammany Hall and everything else back then, where corruption and government really were kissing cousins.
It was about control, and it was about giving government the endless way to finance something. I always say this. We could have never entered World War I without the Federal Reserve.
Right.
Because we started printing money. Then when we entered the war, we actually printed more money to give to the Allies. The Allies turned around and gave it to the banks because they owed them. Then after World War I, who made out again? Well, the bankers. There were war reparations. Germany couldn't pay them. So who printed money? That was the United States to give to Germany to pay. It was a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Destroyed the Weimar Republic because they had no, their country was, it was a horrible, vicious cycle that was unleashed there. And out of it came war profiteers and all that. They all had the central bank to back them.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward over the last 111 years that we've been enslaved to international bankers. And the international bankers still don't have enough control or power.
Right.
It's never enough. Ever, 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 ever enough. And now they want to do a thing called a digital currency, Jay, or they're trying to, or testing it, or want to do it by year whatever, because to me that's kind of like a global warming goal. It just gets pushed back, and they just never do it. Now, I don't know if that's true in this case. I don't have any idea. But can you explain that they print money out of thin air all the time?
Absolutely.
It's not backed by any what we used to call specie. That's not a good enough system for them.
Nope.
So what is the movement to a digital currency? Why do they want to move now to a currency where there's no actual cash? There's no actual change, I would imagine. There's no nothing. What's the push?
Control. Really, that's it.
So J.P. Morgan the 7th is the same as the
yeah. But let's get a little more technical about it. That's the one word answer. We know that there is a race right now to be the next world currency, people are trying to depeg the dollar. You have the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, remind me, South Africa, China and South Africa. Okay. And they're trying to get other countries into their union of whatever, and they want to depeg the dollar. So they're doing what they can to come up with a system where right now oil is almost all traded in dollars. That's the deal we made with Saudi Arabia. They're, just a lot of the world's business, the whole global shipping and producing and manufacturing business is all done in American dollars for the most part.
Now, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Why is that good for the United States? I know the answer. I just want to.
Yeah.
Why should we worry that it's not done in dollars? Why is it so important that the dollar is the world currency that is most recognized?
Well, it keeps our dollar strong.
Yeah.
If our dollar is ever truly depegged and they go with some other option, all of a sudden the value of our dollar drops drastically. And with the amount of debt that we have, we're done for. I mean,
so what about those bonds I owe? Who's going to pay me those?
Well, they might make a good substitute when you can't afford to buy toilet paper anymore.
All right, well, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But what has caused so the dollar getting weak?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let me just finish what you were saying though about. I interrupted you about you were talking about the BRICS countries and all that.
Right.
I'll come back to my question.
So these countries are working to replace the dollar as the world reserve currency. So some of what they are trying to do is coming up with a digital currency, digital reserve currency, they call it, for their country. China is very far along in this process. And so to compete, the U.S. has to try and come up with one as well. The European countries are trying to come up with one through the European Union, and so there are a number of options that are at play right now to try and see, okay, who is going to have that top billing, who's going to be the world reserve currency. Because if you have something that is easier to trade, something where you don't have to do the conversions, because that's a headache too for business. I'm not saying it's a bad headache to have, but if I have to give you $50 worth of Indian rupees, trying to figure the conversion rate out, there's always complications in that.
Yeah, and there's always, other countries have their inflation could be more or less, right, and could change all the time.
Absolutely.
Sure, it changes every day.
So, like with all things, whatever's better for business is what they're going to do and make the rest of us suffer through it. It doesn't matter if it's good for the rest of the world. It's good for business because they don't have to do the conversions. It's all going to be done digitally. That's one reason.
We'll all get a raise. We'll get a raise.
Well, it might seem like that.
Didn't think so.
We'll get into more of that because I think, and I've heard that. Something we didn't talk about in the history of this, and maybe you can explain because I think this is a good point and a good place to put that. We haven't always had the U.S. dollar, the greenback. We've gone through, about 6 different iterations of currency as a country?
Yeah, I don't know that I can speak too intelligently on that, but I know we've been through multiples. For sure.
And every time that we change the currency that we're using, the people that hold the old currency usually get the short end of the stick in the conversion.
Usually. If you go to like Civil War greenbacks, which stayed in circulation, there was an end date that they had to quote gold dollars and greenback dollars had to be sometime in Grant's term. There was a time where that had to be done. The government would sometimes inflate the price of something by like buying silver or storing silver or something, which would artificially inflate the price of that. Again, there were winners and losers in that, especially if you were a debtor, versus a creditor. I mean, you saw those things totally differently. Or if you were a farmer and you were land rich, but you weren't cash rich, you could easily be a winner or a loser in something like that. There was the Sherman Silver Purchase Act. There was another one that happened under President Harrison. So, I mean, we've gone back and forth with greenback. You go all the way back to the Continental Dollar when we've gone from back and forth. And, the first and second national banks issued their own currency.
Yeah.
And when the bank ran out in 1911, that had to be changed back into a different form of whatever they were using then. States issued currency at one time, and then when the national bank came in, they had to convert to whatever the bank wanted to do. So usually the short end of the stick ends up with who's got the old stuff.
Yeah. And so that is rumored to be how this will go, is if we go to a digital currency, that when the conversion rate comes, that most people are going to end up with the short end of the stick. And the people who hold out the longest are the ones that are going to get the shortest end of the stick. And with the way that we're going right now, with DEI, which we were talking about earlier, and this is one way they can pay back reparations for slavery, is by making sure that those people not only don't lose money, but make money on their conversion. And so just to start out, the whole thing is crooked. Because they can decide for whoever they want to, here's what we're going to give you for the money that you have.
Okay, now stop right there.
Yeah.
Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5
of
the United States Constitution states the following: that Congress has powers to tax and spend, to borrow money, and to, quote, coin money and regulate the value thereof.
Yeah.
So the stick is with Congress. So to prevent that from happening, in theory, could Congress pass a law saying, no, banks, you can't do that. You're going to treat everybody equally. The power is ours. To regulate the value thereof.
Yeah.
That's pretty strong language.
Yes. So theoretically, yes. But when's the last time that Congress has used the Constitution for anything?
Well, when it comes to money, probably in Jackson's day.
Right. And as far as wielding the amount of power they actually have, it's been decades.
Yeah, the executive has taken all the power away.
Yeah. So good luck with that.
Okay, how about the Treasury Department? I mean, what role do they play in that?
Well, they're the ones.
I know we're kind of skipping around, but
they give validity to the currency, right? I mean, your Federal Reserve notes, the Treasury is the one that kind of makes it legal tender, right?
Sure. Assesses a value to it.
Right. So the Treasury Department really has a lot more to do with how much we spend as a country and, our deficits and making sure we pay back our debts and all that kind of stuff.
Of course, not getting the debts in the first place is probably the best policy.
That would be amazing, yes.
Okay, so let's just pretend I got $5,000 in my bank account in dollars. They can decide what if I pull it all out of there?
Well, you can do that. Of course, you'll be holding on to $5,000 worth of paper that will be worth zero at some point.
Okay. How does that, is this only the banks that are Because how do the Federal Reserve banks force all the other banks to do this? If you got a local state bank, credit union bank, how can they fight a digital currency?
Well, I don't know if they can. When the Federal Reserve says that this is going to be legal tender from here on out, and this is not going to be legal tender, because here's the way that it's going to work. From what I've read, is that the Federal Reserve is going to set up for everybody these individual Federal Reserve accounts, and you can look it up. There are articles out there, and that will probably be run through the local banks, and it's going to be up to those banks, credit unions, whatever, to play ball. If they're not going to play ball, then
But see, you listen to the Fed, and they're like, "Oh, we don't control all the banks. We don't." They're only the ones that are FDIC backed.
Right.
Even those we don't really force anything. You listen to them and they claim they don't have the power to do this.
Right.
Now they're full of crap. Look at the interest rates and tell me they don't have the power.
Right. Exactly. I mean, they're able to create the entire or control the entire economy just on interest rates alone.
But see, that's where this gets so scary, because you have a Congress that will not impose its will. It will not. They won't stop spending. Okay, they won't do anything that will turn this the other direction.
Right.
You have a Secretary of the Treasury right now who I'm not sure she knows what the dollar means.
Oh, no.
She's the biggest dimwit in the face of the earth.
No, she used to be the head of the Fed under Barack Obama, and now she's the head of the Treasury under Biden.
Oh, that's not a conflict of interest.
No,
that's not a play both sides.
Yeah.
Whose interest do you think she's representing on there?
Exactly.
I mean, the Secretary of the Treasury should be an independent. Well, they're not independent because they serve at the pleasure of the president. But I mean, and I got to say too that they did not do a good job of scrutinizing her, in my opinion.
Mm-mm.
I mean, she sailed through pretty quickly when she was picked back in 2021.
Yeah, and I know that that's the way things have been for a long time. In most cases, the president picks who they want for their cabinet, and Congress just approves them and, gives them the rubber stamp.
Okay, that's, what? He wins, he gets to pick his people. But you have to get things on the record. You have to get things said in public. You have to get things said, no. See, don't call me a conspiracy theorist. The Secretary of the Treasury said that.
Yeah.
Not me.
Right.
That's what's missing a lot of times is I want it on the record. I want it on the record that we have a Supreme Court justice who doesn't know what a woman is.
Right.
And then when there's a Title IX case in front of her, I expect it to be dismissed.
Yeah.
You don't know what a woman is, there can't be a victim.
Yep. Absolutely. That's
so
true. And I don't know. It's crazy.
Anyhow.
Yes.
I digress yet again, Jay.
Oh.
So you
boy.
talk about control. Okay. So what happens to my paycheck then? It gets thrown into an account with my name on it.
Yes, exactly.
Do I get to pick where I want to bank? Do I get to pick where?
I guess I don't know that yet. I suppose any bank that decides to play ball with the Federal Reserve, right? Because if you don't, the money that you put into a credit union isn't going to be worth anything anyways at some point.
Unless it's still legal tender.
Right, unless it's still legal tender.
But if they're not going to print any more cash, isn't eventually that all going to go away?
Yeah.
And we stopped printing greenbacks, after the Civil War, so eventually they went away.
Right. But things used to be a lot more free-flowing back then, too. You didn't have a government that was keeping track of everything meticulously, one that had to have all of the data, one that and this is why I believe that they won't allow for both of those things to happen. They're not going to allow for some sort of gray market, if you will, where it's legal but frowned upon, or a black market that's totally frowned upon. They're going to want their one option, because this is how it's going to work. The money goes into your account. It's going to be called programmable. That's what they've They've said there's a whole article on it on the Federal Reserve website about it being programmable. It's a really long, detailed, boring article. I tried to read it. I had to take NoDoz. I had to drink Surge soda.
I saw some empty Red Bull cans on the floor. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah. And basically, when it's programmable, what it means is that it's programmable to you, the holder of the account. Each account, because your dollars are going to be no more than ones and zeros. That means every tip, everything you earn is going to have to go through this account. And it's all going to be these ones and zeros. So because it's computer generated, and this is already proving true in China with yuan, and you have an article you want to go over in a little bit, and just to prove the validity of this, that they can program it to you. If you're overweight, they can keep you from buying donuts. Your money is no good at the bakery. If you are a conspiracy theorist, they can keep you from subscribing to the Blaze. If you are someone that spends way too much money, more than you're allowed, on sporting equipment or CDs or whatever, they can cut you off and say, no, you're being irresponsible with your money. You can't do that. They program it to you based on you.
So based on all the information they have on you.
Yes. And they get that off of social media. They can get that if they want to get to your emails, they can get to your emails. They can do that through any other kind of public information that they can get from you. And it's a lot more than you think, especially with AI and the things that are coming out now to be able to scrape and gather information and store it, which they have throughout the country. I know there's a big mountainside one in Utah that stores more information about us, the citizens of the United States, than you can even imagine.
President Biden, he doesn't have an enemies list. He has an enemies warehouse.
Yes.
I mean, but anyway, if you want to go to the Cato Institute, that's a great place to look at. You can find articles. So this one I am quoting is from James A. Dorn, China's Digital Yuan, A Threat to Freedom. And basically what they're doing in China basically is a guy named Alex Gladstein from the Human Rights Foundation has written extensively on how ending cash is the way to social engineer. And there's a quote here: when the government can take financial privileges away for posting the wrong word on social media, saying the wrong thing in a call to parents, or sending the wrong photo to relatives, individuals self-censor and exercise extreme caution. In this way, control over money can create a chilling social effect. Now, this goes back to what we've talked about before about ESG scores.
Yes.
You know, they're going to know who you contributed to politically.
Absolutely.
You know, right now I can send Donald Trump $50 and he doesn't have to report that. Neither do I.
Right.
But with digital currency, they're going to see who I'm doing that to.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's certain a dollar amount they do now, but they can't stop me from it. You know, if I want to go take $1,000 and go gamble with it, I can.
Yep.
But can't they say, well, you know, that's too much gambling?
Yeah. That's an irresponsible use of your money.
Yeah, or you're not gambling at the right places.
Right.
We want you to gamble here instead. That business is not green enough.
Right. We want you to get the state lottery tickets.
Yes. Right. Oh, the Indians ain't going to be happy about that, let me tell you.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, you keep, and here's the thing. I mean, they keep saying, and this is the only, I'm one of two minds on this. how they keep saying, oh, it's way off, it's 10 years off, it's 20 years off. Either it is, or they just haven't found the way to market this right.
Yeah.
Because so much of this is about marketing. You know, I mean, like so much of it is about convincing us that this is good for us. It's kind of like watching a commercial on, depression medication. Hey, you sad? You ever scared to talk to your boss? Well, you might want to try some Mylanta or whatever. I mean, you might want to, whatever it is. You might want to, they convince you something's wrong with you, so you'll try their product. It's advertising. So how do they sell, Jay? How do they sell this as a good thing? Especially here. Because I think Americans don't understand how the dollar works. I think they don't understand how the dollar is internationally. I think too many people are wrapped up in Democrat versus Republican. So how do they convince us to give up our cash?
Well, it's not going to be by talking about the programmable part of it. They're going to talk about how to a certain group, we'll say to your intersectionality matrix people, that you're going to make out really well on the conversion. You're going to want to convert early because we're going to give you extra money. And to everybody else,
they don't have any money.
Wow.
They don't got
They
any
will
money.
now.
No transsexual former lesbian who used to be black that has any money. Come on.
Here, how now they've all got government jobs, so they'll do fine.
It's true.
Here's how they sell it to everybody else. Look at the ease. Look at how quick this is. All you got to do is it's like Apple Pay on steroids.
See,
you just got to wave your phone over the sensor. Worse yet, wave your hand over the sensor, and you will be able to access your Federal Reserve account.
Doesn't that scare you, though?
Yes.
Because young people, that's what they do.
Yeah.
They don't have cash. What 20-year-old do you know that has any cash?
Yeah.
All they do is wave their phone or press a button.
They're already being programmed.
Yeah, they're being
to accept this, that your money is not in your hand, it's in your phone, and all you got to do is it's just there. You get it digitally and it leaves digitally. It's just there. What's the big deal if the Federal Reserve holds it? It's just a different place to hold it.
I'm telling you, that's what that generation's going to think.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see anybody 18 years old at a cash machine.
No, you don't.
It's all people your age and older.
Yeah. Yeah,
So be realistic with me.
Yeah.
Okay? I know that there's plotting and planning to do everything. Do you think that this will happen? And number two, does it depend on this BRICS group? Does it depend if they can supplement the dollar? Does it depend if the dollar continues to weaken with our borrowing and our printing, if our economy isn't strong? Because ultimately, the United States consumes, they're like 20-25% of the world's economy. Now, we've been losing ground to China.
Right.
But ultimately, I mean, China and us, that's the next struggle. So it's very hard for these countries. China can hate us all they want to, but they need our market. Okay? They have to sell things here. You can't be a communist government and sell things abroad. You have to. So, I mean, South Africa, they can't exist without other countries. They don't make anything. So, I mean, how does that come about exactly?
Well, I think that they've already done all the testing. I mean, this has already been they've been working on this since the beginning of really Biden's term in office.
Well, they've really been working on it for almost a decade in some cases.
But when Biden came into office, he laid down some executive orders that made sure that they had this ready to go. Yeah. That they finally built the system, tested the system. I mean, this is really just laying in waiting for the next financial catastrophe.
See, that's what concerns me. Because the bankers are going to create a crisis.
Yes.
Just like they did with the bailouts.
Yes.
And what happens every time there's a crisis?
Swoop in like the savior they want to be seen as.
It's 9/11 and the Patriot Act all over again.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Right.
So how do they do that? How do they create the crisis? What do they do?
Well, I mean, we see them jacking interest rates around, and part of it is up to us, and to what degree that we keep the economy going through purchasing things, through financing things, through, how much debt do we have versus how much are we paying off versus wages versus. So there's a lot that, new jobs, all of these things that we are in control of as the consumer. Thank goodness, because that is our system right now. The capitalist system, the people can keep it afloat. And as much as I hated when George Bush was like, oh, just go out and spend money, that's how we beat the terrorists. What? I didn't agree with that then. But what I'm saying here is that we have to, as the American people, make sure that we make wise financial decisions in order to keep the economy afloat, because there is a catastrophe waiting in the wings. And whether it is another housing bubble, whether it is...
No question that's coming.
Some people have, I think Glenn Beck has said, we're on the verge of an everything bubble. Where everything is so artificially inflated that it just takes one area to have problems and everything collapses.
I don't know. I don't know that I can go that far. Our economy is so big and so
it is
wide. I mean, housing went down, the country didn't fall apart.
Right.
I mean, I can see what he's saying, but I don't know that one thing. I don't know that.
I think it depends.
The oil and automobile industry is the one that really worries me, because we don't have energy independence. We've depleted our strategic reserves, and now we're trying to build cars that nobody wants. Well, what happens when we get to that point where people aren't buying and the goods and services aren't getting, the government mandates? I mean, we can't move around. I mean, that's something that I find scary.
That is scary. And with the creation of 15-minute cities and forcing people onto mass transit and the building of, luxury apartments and townhomes and high-density housing and mixed-use development.
Well, it's all to keep people from going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what, when you add in bicycles and electric cars and everything else.
Now, I'll say this. That's going to take a long time to happen. I mean, no matter what they say, we're not going to be on all electric vehicles by 2030. No chance.
No.
Okay, that's a 50-year goal right there. But they've been laying it out now and working on it for 25 years now.
Right.
They're that far ahead on it. But energy independence is the one thing that I think I don't, but see, there's a double-edged sword there.
Right.
OPEC, as much as we all hate them, they need to sell to us or they collapse.
Right.
So, we can say, well, yeah, they'll cut off. No, they won't.
No. Well, China's not going to. They're building new coal plants every day.
They're all the time.
We're the only suckers that are. European Union is falling for it too. I have to say, but you read about how the third world countries need help because they don't have enough resources and capital to be able to go green, and they need, it's equity, it's environmental justice or whatever.
Worldwide socialism. That's what it is.
Exactly. And they're trying to push people in that direction. But
the problem is the free market.
They don't want to go that way.
Correcting it. The free market is directing it toward supply and demand.
Well, there's that. Plus, you see China making major strides to invest in a lot of these third world countries. They're the ones running the cobalt mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Sure.
They're the ones that are trying to set up, stripping the wealth, the resources from a lot of these third world nations.
All right, so Jay, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
What else do we do to try to stop this? Because citizens need to do things. Our government certainly needs to do things.
Yeah.
How does it all come together to stop this? Because,
that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Because the problem is we don't have the big sticks to swing internationally,
right?
Especially with China. We really don't.
Yeah.
We do and we don't. We need them to buy our bonds. They need our market to sell stuff.
Right.
So, it's kind of how does that play out? How do we stop this from happening?
Well, that really is the $1 million question. First of all, there's a few things. When you look at the government angle, you need someone like a President Trump that will come in and say, we are not going to implement a digital dollar. It's not going to happen. You need that. You need lawmakers that are willing to pass laws to keep that from happening. You need to put somebody in charge of the Fed that is going to hold them accountable, someone that is going to be accountable to Congress. Which we have not had forever in the Fed.
No, we still don't.
It's completely unaccountable. I know Ron Paul tried to audit the Fed back in
that bill actually passed the House when John Boehner was the Speaker, but it got killed in the Senate.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Republicans.
Both sides killed it, but I think I don't know who had the majority then. But Ron Paul was still in Congress. So I want to say it was 2010-ish after the 2010 that passed the House to audit the Fed.
Yeah, absolutely,
but it was buried by the Senate and Harry Reid, and I'm sure President Obama was on board with that. I don't remember him calling for transparency and anything either.
No, he did not. And it hasn't come up again since.
How about this?
Yeah.
How about a humongous countrywide tax cut?
That would be amazing.
Talk about what would stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
Is taking this out of the hands of the government and into private hands.
Yep. That's really it. If you leave it up to the people to be able to figure it out, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we just won't do it in the way the powers that be want.
Right. That's the catch, is that for them to let us do it and fix it, which I think the American people are totally capable of doing, that means government losing control, and I don't know if I see that happening.
I see it happening in some states. I see it happening. We've already seen... Governor DeSantis has taken a strong stand against a digital currency.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Florida passed something that digital currency cannot be used in transaction.
And I don't know if they
can. I think that's symbolic. I don't know that they can pull that off. How about something like Bitcoin, cryptocurrency? Where do you see that going with
I'm
this?
glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about that. Right now, Bitcoin is a good, if you're looking to get into crypto, things like Bitcoin or Dogecoin or Ethereum. I'm not giving you an endorsement.
Advice?
Yes, I'm not giving you investment advice. But if you're interested in getting into that kind of thing, those are different. They are digital currencies, yes, but they are based on something else. like with Bitcoin.
See, I don't understand how it works. So.
I'm not completely clear on it either, but they have to mine bits, and there's only so many that are ever going to be made. And so there's a value to it. It works a lot like being on the gold standard, where there's only so many bits that are ever going to be mined. So you'll only ever have so much. So there's a certain worth to it based on that. Because it is an alternative currency, our government does not like it, because there's not accountability with it. They don't control it to some degree.
You mean there's not accountability with the government?
Yes.
There's accountability if you and I do a transaction.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's bartering in a way, too.
Yeah.
You could almost put it, it's almost like that.
Yeah, where, it's an alternate form of currency. And the U.S. government can't have competition, as we've seen in so many things. Competition is the thing that they fear the most, whether it's public schools, whether it is in currency. I mean, we know that the government hates competition. Yeah. So, Bitcoin, other digital currencies they're not tied to our Federal Reserve at all. So there is no government accountability, and because of that, they believe that they're not gathering all of the tax money that they could be gathering from those transactions either. So they don't like it, and they're actively searching for a way to destroy these alternate currencies. So if they have their way, all that we'll be able to use is the Federal Reserve coin, or the Federal Reserve digital banking, the digital currency through there, instead of being able to use cash, Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So that's a naughty then on that. So... but as those things rise, as those things become alternatives, as they grow, do they become harder to control? I mean, because like I went on and did a transaction on PayPal the other day, and it asked me if I wanted to pay in Bitcoin or crypto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already being used privately by these companies.
It is. And I think that if the Federal Reserve, digital currency is going to be a bad thing, people will find ways around it. People are ingenuitive, especially in this country. They will find ways to barter. They will find an alternate currency, whether that's alcohol, tobacco, you know what I mean? Things that they put value upon, whatever that is, eggs, vegetables, whatever it is, they will find ways around it to be able to, I can't take cash tips anymore. Well, forget you. I'm going to play for potatoes, or I'm going to play for, or whatever it is. I think that they will find a way around it. Now, I don't know, can they destroy Bitcoin? Can they destroy Ethereum? I don't know if they can, but.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I thought they'd destroy it by now.
Yeah.
When it first came in a few years ago, I thought, sell your stock now. They're gonna drop it now. But they haven't been able to stop it.
Right.
And so maybe they can't. I mean, but I tell you, the bigger it gets, the harder it's going to be to control.
Well, and this is kind of the strange thing. It's a lot of these big banks have been buying up Bitcoin. And they kind of did a run on gold. They've also been doing a little bit of a run on Bitcoin to buy some of this up and drive the price up. Now, Now, how does that serve them if Bitcoin goes out of business? I'm sure they're working that exit plan out.
Of course they are.
Yeah,
they had it before. They made the move.
Right.
They wouldn't have made the move if they weren't covering their bases.
Right.
Huh. Big banks, you got to destroy everything.
Yeah.
You just have to. It just prevents me from liking Alexander Hamilton or Henry Clay, who I respect a lot in American history.
Yeah.
They had a lot of good ideas, both of them. But this banking one, it just,
yeah.
It's just, and you know what I'm tired of too? I'm tired of listening to we're streamlining, we're stabilizing, we're blah, blah, blah. I always hear stuff like that, and I say, you know what? When I hear government use words like that, I know it's bad news.
Right.
I just know it's bad news. I mean, to watch the Fed and how they went under COVID, where they were printing money and buying it back themselves, that inevitably leads to hyperinflation. You and I talked about this back in 2020, that we're going to see inflation. You can't print money at this rate without it losing its value. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And how come? And this is also a reason we never have deflation. Prices never go down. Because they're all artificially pushed, and we have a borrowing economy.
Right.
We have a borrowing economy when it comes to us. All we do as citizens is pay off debt.
Yeah. That's pretty much where we're at.
It's completely where we're at.
Yeah.
All we do is pay off debt.
Yeah.
And because the money's easy to get, if nobody would buy a house for $500,000, nobody tried to sell one for that much. But because you can get the loan,
yeah,
there's always money to be made, and if you don't pay it, we'll kick you out and put somebody else in who will. I mean, even the housing bubble in crisis didn't fundamentally change how this stuff operates.
Right.
Hey, tell me what changed. Tell me what changed from. I see the same pattern right now. Houses are overpriced. Interest rates are too high. We're headed toward another break of some kind.
We have to be. I mean,
there has to be a course correction here.
Sure, interest rates aren't as high as they were in the late 70s, but I mean, you have skyrocketed.
That don't make me feel better.
Gas is more expensive than it was in the 70s, even with all of the fuel shortages, and you had the lines around the block, and
the Yom Kippur War. But I'll tell you what, 2021, I remember pulling into a gas station, and three of the pumps were out of gas.
Yeah,
I've never seen that happen before.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've seen it, but it's been during this period.
We're in the scariest period in American history.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, think about it. Even though they say, unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. I mean, how many times have you walked into a place, even now still, where it's like, help wanted, please be patient.
Everywhere.
Please be patient with us because we don't have enough people.
But again, Jay, that's like the CPI. How the government counts inflation or unemployment is already a cooked number.
Yeah.
It's a BS number. Number one, it is an employer survey, which they're only counting people who are seeking work.
Right.
See, there's seasonal unemployment, there's cyclical unemployment. That number is a BS number.
Yeah.
Period. It's just like the CPI inflation number. Oh, yeah. Inflation's down to 4% if I don't include food, gas, and rent. Oh, okay. Well, great. Happy days are here again, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are BS numbers.
Yeah. Hey, I want to go back, and I want to read something out of that article from the Cato Institute.
Yeah.
Just for those that maybe aren't sold yet on why this is a bad idea. Alex Gladstein, Chief Strategy Officer at the Human Rights Foundation, has recognized the danger to financial... I
just read that guy.
Did you read the whole thing through?
Maybe not. About a half
The
hour.
end of cash and the instant analysis of financial transactions enables surveillance, state control.
I didn't say that.
You did?
I might have, I might not have. I don't recall.
Enable surveillance, state control, and eventually social engineering on a scale never thought possible. He points to China's social credit system in conjunction with a digital yuan as paving the way towards financial omniscience. Thus, when the government can take financial privileges away for posting the wrong word on social media.
I read that part.
You read that part. So
the first part I did. No, but I did omit that first part. Yeah, I mean that's what they're Chinese communists. Whatever they're admitting to doing, it's 10 times worse.
But here's the thing, the World Economic Forum has stated that China is the model that they want to use in implementing their whole system, which is, you really have the World Economic Forum and their people going head to head against China and their people. You have the BRICS countries, you have us, and we're somewhat, tied in with Europe. And so you have the West and you have the East. And so it's not any more settling to me just because we're in the West, because they've said that China's system is the model for what we need to do.
What's this world like? Who are they? Who are these bastards?
That's Klaus Schwab.
Oh, it's that piece of crap.
Yeah. The Bond villain. Yeah. And all of the, only like the most powerful companies in the world. So.
Oh, companies I hate.
Yeah.
I'm so anti-corporate now. I mean, there was a time where I defended big business. Whether it's supporting transit, whether it's supporting this DEI crap, whether they really do it or not. I mean, There's some I think just state it and it's BS. Some I think are serious about it.
Yeah, there's a ton of pushback on it right now.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot from employees, and you know what? There's some of it from minorities.
Yeah.
Who don't want to be treated like that, or don't want to be everybody to think they only got a job because they checked the right boxes. That's not I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that feeling on me.
Right.
I was like, no, I earned it. I worked hard. I got my education. I think we're so far. I go back to listening to the words of Martin Luther King. That my children will be judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Yes.
I go back to him seeing his own death. I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, what he pushed, for which he was labeled a communist by the idiot who ran our FBI.
Yeah.
For supporting, free speech, right to vote, right to assemble, all those communist principles.
Right.
And just, and I think to myself, we're so far, we're further from that than we were then, I think.
I think so.
I think we're further from it.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed at it.
It is embarrassing. Oh, goodness.
All right. We've talked enough.
That is a lot of stuff.
But I think the bottom line is this. If you want info on digital currency, you're going to have to bypass the mainstream media.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go to places like The Blaze. You're going to have to go to places like Tucker Carlson. You're going to have to go to alternatives. I know Lou Dobbs has talked about it. I don't know where Lou is now that, all those independent thinkers that Fox got rid of. I mean,
right.
He was at Fox Business for a while, and now he's gone. So I don't know where he's.
Yeah, you won't hear Fox talk about this at all.
No.
I mean, might I add?
No, not now.
No. Tucker brought it up once in a while, but Fox is just as bad as far as where our economy is really going. This issue, Fox is as bad as CNN, MSNBC.
Yeah, of course they are. I mean, they're all run by the mega corps.
Right.
So, all right. Jay, we talked about when did me guessing the song. I got to find out when the sign-off sermon. You've been doing it for a few years now.
I have.
So, styling and profiling, limousine riding, jet flying. Take it away with the sign-off sermon. Jason, Donald, Bradley, the fourth. Go.
Thank you, Andrew. Donald is not my middle name. But
I
on your show it is.
I renamed it.
On your show it is. So it's our economy on purpose is very confusing, very complicated. You go through 9th grade civics class and then you take economics, and you have the microeconomics, you have the macroeconomics, and it all kind of seems to make sense. All right, you understand how to balance a checkbook, you understand, basically what capitalism is and how it works, how to do the stock market. But, they have made things so complicated. They could make a tax criminal out of just about anybody that they really wanted to at this point. They have got things so wrapped up in a way that they don't think you can ever get it. And they make the problem so huge that whatever they come up with as the fix for the problems they've created, you've just got to use. Yes. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem. They already have a solution in place. And when you react, they bring that solution in. And, all of a sudden, you're saved or something like that. In reality, we're worse off than we were before. But like I said at the beginning of the show, this is really an ultra local issue, because if you don't have enough money in your wallet when you go to pay your bills, you're in trouble. If you can't just take out a couple of bucks and throw it in the hat to the saxophone player down on corner of 2nd and 4th, even though he's terrible, if you want to do that, that's your right to do that. You may want to give a couple of dollars to that guy that is in a wheelchair sitting on the freeway off ramp. You're not going to be able to do that. You may want to pay for something in cash. You will not be able to do it. This is about a structure of control. And it is very important that you understand exactly what your options are, and that you start looking into it right now. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says, whoever loves money never has enough. And that's true. Government is not content with what it's due. I mean, that is evidenced by the fact that now there has been a huge surplus in St. Paul 2 years in a row. Last year, we didn't get hardly any of it back, and I wouldn't count on us getting any of it back this year either. They have found a way to, even though they taxed us too much, more than they said they needed, they found a way to spend it all. Because there's just too many things that they want to do. They love your money. And you see these politicians that go into office without 10 cents to their name, and they come out multimillionaires. There's something wrong with that. There is something terribly wrong with that. And you have to have enough to be able to pay your bills, to take care of your kids, to buy them the things that they need, to put dinner on the table. But let me tell you, if this plan goes through, all of that is threatened. You will eat what they want you to eat. You will wear what they want you to wear. You will work where they want you to work. You will not have the freedom to be able to do what you need to do. It's a race to the top. And so they are just waiting for the right opportunity, because they know that most of the people in America aren't going to willingly accept this without there being an emergency. Look at COVID. They need an emergency to be able to bend the rules and make you accept something that under normal circumstances you would not. You need to let them know in no uncertain terms now that you will not accept this, that you will not comply, that you will not go into this control that they have planned for you. It's something that we got to do. Because if we just go ho-hum into this, you will not be able to undo some of this or any of it at any point. Once greenbacks go away in favor of the digital dollar, that is what you will have. And good luck untangling the programmable end of it, which is going to be implemented at the very forefront of these accounts. Good luck. Now, instead, we need to be proactive. We need to start now. If you value your lifestyle, being able to go to the store and buy what you want, being able to have the food that you need in your cupboards and not relying on the government, then this is where it starts. 2024, here we are. Are you in or are you out? You're part of the solution. You're part of the problem. You got to choose a side. Doing nothing makes you part of the problem. We have races coming up this year that need to be filled with good people. At the city level, at the county level, at the school district level, at the state level. We need sheriffs. We need county attorneys. We have to make a play for these offices in order to preserve freedom for the long haul. So, where are you at? You can get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is commsolutionsmn@gmail.com to be able to work with us. Have us talk to you about a strategy to get you elected. And tell you, we will help you run a competitive race. And if you are coachable and you work hard, you're going to be really happy with the results. That's all there is to it. So get a hold of us. Like I said at the beginning, check out the new commsolutionsmn.com. That's commsolutionsmn.com. We've got a lot of details there, a lot of content for you to go through. This is the start of the new phase that we're entering into. It's the gloves are off, and we're coming at you, ready to defend our country, our city, and we're ready to win. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.